Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today for our Campus to Career Biology webinar. My name is Catherine Olea, and I'm the Assistant Director of Career Development here at Concordia University, Irvine. Today's webinar is going to focus on bridging that gap between your undergraduate studies and a career down the line. And today we are fortunate to be joined by a group of professionals who are specializing in lab management, hands-on research, and environmental resource and protection. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to our panelists and allow them to introduce themselves. So Patty, would you mind kicking it off?
You got it. Hi, everyone. My name is Patty. I'm the lab manager here at Concordia University, Irvine, specifically with our natural sciences department.
Great, thank you. Christian, would you mind going next?
Yeah, I'm Christian. I'm currently a research scientist at a company called Vertex Pharmaceuticals.
Awesome. And Kaylin, what about you?
Hi, my name is Kaylin Shelton. I'm a natural resource specialist with the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife's Water Quality and Quantity Program.
Great. So I have a couple questions here that we can just kind of go back and forth on. But first question I have is, can you briefly describe your role and a typical day and like kind of what that looks like? Um, Kaylin, why don't you start?
Perfect. Yeah. So a typical day in my role involves anywhere from 8 to 10 hours of field work a day. We do in-stream flow studies, fish population studies, and in-stream temperature monitoring. So often our days begin with hiking and oftentimes also camping as well while we're in the field collecting data. Anywhere ranging from stream discharge measurements, electrofishing, fish surveys, and thermistor deployments out in the field. And when not in the field during the off season, which is usually from October through about March, I'm in the office doing data processing, spatial analysis with GIS, and database management.
Great. Okay. You mentioned a few programs. It'd be great to get a list of those afterwards, just so that we can keep those on track. I know a lot of students wonder like if they need to know certain softwares or anything going into specific
Mm,
industries, but yeah, that'd be super helpful.
yeah, absolutely.
Great. And then Patty, what about you? What does a typical day look like?
When it comes to lab manager roles, it really depends on the kind of environment that you're in. Here at Concordia, I'm working essentially as an instructional lab manager. So as opposed to being in charge of a singular research lab, I'm in charge of making sure that our instructional and research courses are going well with the students. The typical day in the life as a lab manager looks like making sure that we have all the supplies that we need. So making purchases, logging all of our purchase orders, making sure that we have all of the instruments working well in the lab, troubleshooting those, and also being able to communicate with any external vendors who we're using to buy supplies or services from, along with meeting with professors and students so that we make sure that the labs are running smoothly.
Nice. Okay. And then Christian, what does your day-to-day typically look like?
Yeah, so my day-to-day involves checking my calendar to see if there's any meetings with other scientists to go over data around the projects that we're looking at. But it's partially that, and then partially running different assays in cells, in vitro, so in a test tube, and then analyzing that data to present and communicate with teams so that we can make decisions on the next experiments to help progress our therapeutic programs.
Nice. Okay. Awesome. And then my next question for you all would be, how did your major prepare you for your first job out of college? So I know that this is campus to career biology, and then biology is very broad. And some of you may have either niche majors or more broad majors or things like that. But I'm just curious what it was about your major that kind of prepared you for the positions that you're in or your first job out of college. Patty, did you want to start there?
Yeah, I can go ahead and get started. Um, when I was an undergrad, I had a general biology degree, which I thought was really helpful in being able to really get a better idea of the breadth of skills, or technical skills that we needed in labs or out in the field. Um, Being able to also know how to practice lab safety was really big, and highly emphasized at UC Riverside. so that we can make sure that you're not only protecting yourself from any potential hazards, but also protecting your classmates and the people around you. Um, and then one of the other skills that I learned within my major at UC Riverside was being able to communicate science to people who were both scientists and non-scientists. That kind of stuff really comes in handy when it comes to making sure that we're able to really support our students, because in this kind of role, you need to be able to not only talk with the professors who are trying to teach you how to train students, but you're the one who's actually making sure that the day-to-day tasks are getting done, that everyone knows how to fulfill their roles in an efficient and safe way. So being able to talk to these students about the science that they're doing is going to be like an essential part of the role.
Nice. Yeah. I know that a lot of times when students come and they start talking to me, especially biology students and chemistry students, they'll talk to me as if I know the language. And sometimes I have to kind of pause and say, okay, I am not in this world. I am like on a completely separate side, like of staff that may not understand the intricacies or like use all the same lingo. And so kind of helping them communicate science to someone who's not embedded in that day to day is super helpful. Like I would say it's a really great skill to walk out with. Christian, what about you? Did anything in your major kind of prepare you for what you're doing today?
Yeah, so definitely, as you alluded to, learning the language of biology, and especially that niche biology that you end up choosing for your career path. I still use a lot of the things that I learned in undergrad today in my job. But I think one of the most important things about my undergraduate experience that prepared me for my next position was actually engaging in a research experience. So doing research in an academic lab, helping with some of their projects. I also was able to lead a project within the lab that I was in, and that gave me a lot of the skill set and the tools to go forward and apply to a grad school where I would do my PhD. But it's really important to get that initial experience, which you can get in college, to prepare you for that next step and be competitive for different jobs in that field.
That's really great. And Kaylin, what about you?
Yeah, so I earned an environmental studies degree from UC Santa Barbara. And at UCSB, the environmental studies degree is the most, I can't speak currently, but when I was in school, it was the most unit heavy major. And it was very interdisciplinary. So we had to take a lot of courses, not just in the environmental science courses, but as well as biology, microbiology, chemistry, physics, philosophy, math. Kind of all over the spectrum. And I think that helped me just to see what all was out there, what types of topics there were, classes that I enjoyed and classes I didn't enjoy, which kind of guided me into a path that I wanted to go, which is not where I am today, but that's okay. And I think that's what's great about this field is there are so many paths you can go. And I think having a major where I was able to try a lot of different things helped me get to where I am today. And I think, without getting too much into the next question, I'm realizing, I really enjoyed the amount of things I got to dip my toes in. And I think that helped me, after college. My first job out of college, I worked at a science camp in the San Bernardino Mountains, and that was really fun getting to teach science. And then after that, I took my field job where I was camping for 8 days at a time, having 6 days off, and just out in the streams and the rivers all the time. And having that interdisciplinary major kind of led me down a path of like, oh yeah, let me try this, let me try that, let's see what's down this road. And I think that was something that was really great about my undergrad degree at UCSB.
Great. So what I'm hearing from like all three of you, just like a common theme that I'm hearing is that um, science communication was really important, just kind of learning to speak the language, but then also being open to those different opportunities that were going to come your way or seeking them out and just kind of opening yourself up to learning something that maybe you weren't initially going to be interested in, or being open to maybe that's not the right path for me and things like that. That's really great. I always think that students should take advantage of the different types of courses that they take in their undergrad because it could kind of perk them up to maybe a new opportunity, or it could help them save them lots of money down the road and if they're trying to pursue a career that's just not going to be right for them. But until they get that experience, they won't know. Um, but yeah, so a few of you alluded to this already, but the next question that I had for you was, is there an internship or an extracurricular activity or maybe even a department that was at your school that helped you kind of pursue your career? Christian, did you want to start with that one?
Sure. Yeah. So I think it was my second or third year in undergrad. I took a chemistry lab course. Um, I liked it, and I talked to actually one of my TAs about potentially doing research and learning about how research is done kind of in an academic setting. And she was really great. She actually introduced me to the professor that ran the lab that she was doing her grad studies in. And I was able to end up joining that lab. I think that was a really pivotal point in my undergrad because that kind of helped me figure out that I do really like the molecular life sciences. And I ultimately would want to pursue that kind of in a professional career sense. Yeah, it was really important to just reach out and express interest in something. Yeah, there were multiple opportunities down the road that came from that as well. Also, at UC Irvine, collaborating with other labs or different mentorship opportunities from other types of scientists. So definitely, it's really important to reach out and express your interest to figure out what you're excited about.
So going off of that, how competitive would you say it was for you to get into that lab? Because I know that you expressed interest with your TA, but did that kind of give you a leg up versus other people that were maybe interested, or how did that process kind of go?
Yeah, so it kind of just depends on the funding situation for that lab. So academic labs rely on funding from the government and other agencies to actually purchase all the reagents and do the science that they do in their labs with the ultimate goal to publish these findings in journals. Um, the lab that I had reached out to that my TA was in happened to have some extra space for some undergrads. And so that ended up working out really well. But that may not always be the situation with the lab. So it really is about funding. It's about how much space do they have in the lab, physical space, and if they can, have the space for undergrads, and if they have the bandwidth to mentor undergraduate students. Usually, you're paired up with either a graduate student or a postdoctoral researcher within that lab to actually learn the basics and get that initial training to get yourself going so that you can start contributing to the projects.
Got it. Okay. That's really helpful. Kaylin, what about you? Was there an internship, extracurricular activity, anything during your undergraduate career that kind of shaped your career trajectory?
Yeah, I think for me, it was my junior year of college. I had the opportunity to study abroad, which was something that was very impactful and kind of I did three very different programs. My first one I'll touch on is I did an internship program in Washington, D.C. Called the UCDC program. And in that program, students have the opportunity to participate in a 30 to 32 hour a week internship, and then you take one class during the quarter or semester that you're there. During my time there, I interned with the World Wildlife Fund as a government relations intern, which was really neat. I working in the heart of DC, working on major wildlife and environmental issues, going to Capitol Hill, listening to Senate hearings, and reporting back to my team. It really gave me an inside look into what the government or policy side of environmental science and biology field looks like. Less of the sciencey, more on the social side of that degree as well. And I really enjoyed what that opportunity provided me with, especially having an internship that was 30 hours a week. Most interns were there once a week, and I felt I had a great opportunity to see and do a lot more with the time I had there. And then my last study abroad program I did was a field-based research program in Australia and the Solomon Islands, and that gave me the field skills and exposure that I use now in my day-to-day job. in just field survey methods, developing a research project, and then being adaptable to what the field has. Because not all things are cut and dry as sometimes we would hope them to be before we go into the field. And so that experience gave me research opportunities looking at, global issues related to biology and environmental science, but then applying them on a local level in a remote country of the Solomon Islands, which was really neat. And just making those connections with other people and meeting students who were within the UC system. Not everyone went to UC Santa Barbara on those programs. And so I think, again, it was also a way to network in a sense with other folks in my field. But I will say, I think those were the two that kind of shaped me of, especially the my Australia study abroad of like, wow, I really like the idea of an office being outside. That sounds pretty fun. So that kind of piqued my interest a little in what those types of jobs might entail down the line.
That's pretty cool. It's cool to see that you got to see both sides of it, like the what you're doing now. So like the day-to-day being in the field, kind of like putting together like your research methods and like your field methods and all of that, and just like kind of putting it in action versus the policy side. I feel like that's something I touch on a lot with students is like, hey, we need people that are out there to like enforce policy, that are able to kind of market different products, that is able to do these things, that speak this language, because they're kind of the in-betweens, that because just having the knowledge of this field, the knowledge of kind of like being able to go back and forth between, like, I call it like the scientists and then the policymakers, like just being able to be that middle person so that you can translate both sides is really cool.
Yeah, and I definitely think, to just touch on that a little more with my current job even, is I'm in the field mostly collecting the data, but the data we're collecting is actively impacting water rights and water policy in the state of Oregon and how water is managed on a day-to-day, especially as we move into drier years. Water is a scarcity. And so it is really neat to have had that experience in college, that now I kind of have that understanding in my job currently, where we're working with the policymakers to implement in-stream flow requirements. So yeah, I agree. It's definitely really cool to have, those multiple experiences in different fields.
Yeah, it must feel really rewarding too to see that everything that you're doing is going to be kind of used and taken into account when all these new policies are written. That's really cool. Nice. What about you, Patty? Was there anything during your undergraduate career that kind of shaped how you wanted your career to turn out?
Yeah, so during my time as an undergrad, one of the key experiences that I had was being able to conduct undergraduate research. So at UC Riverside, I was very blessed that it was still rising in the ranks in terms of public universities. And with that being said, especially it being a minority serving university, there were a lot of grants and initiatives in place that were trying to help students who were from minority or low income backgrounds to get into research careers. So I had different funding opportunities so that I could get paid research experience as an undergrad. And that allowed me the benefit of being able to work in a research lab and get strong experiences while not having to look outside of research to get supplemental income. So not needing to do on or off campus jobs or different summer jobs that weren't field related. So being able to get the research experience was super helpful. So being able to learn how to work independently, learn how to be brave and ask questions when I was confused, reading research papers. Like all of these skills were something that I gained from my time in research, but I also realized that I didn't have a passion for being in the lab. Like I was able to get things done. I was able to work efficiently. I was able to maintain a lab notebook. But the thing that I really came out of research understanding was I loved being able to talk to people about science. I loved being able to mentor others. Um, when I got my second paid summer research experience as an undergrad, it was shortly after I had just gone to my first ever conference. I had presented a research project and I had won a presentation award. And being able to come into the summer program and tell the students who were freshly getting into research about the opportunities that there were at the university, state, and national level so that they could be sharing their work and communicating the contributions that they're not just making to society, but like their peers and different universities as a whole was something that I came out of research really enjoying. It was being able to share my science, being able to show why tax dollars should be funding this kind of research, like the kind of impact that it could have on communities and how it could have impacts on even just homeowners, the average American. Um, like being able to show that kind of impact in science was really what I was passionate about, and showing others that they have a role to play in this as scientists as well. Every time that you're doing research, it isn't so that your lab notebook could sleep on the shelf and never be found out. Like ultimately, the goal is for you to be able to publish so that other scientists can learn from your work and build upon it. It's so that you're able to communicate it to the public and they're able to learn from it, or so that industry could then pick it up and maybe develop it even further and create products that are helping humanity. And that's the kind of stuff that I realized that I really loved when it came to research. It wasn't actually doing the bench work. It wasn't going out and collecting the data for me. It was being able to talk to people about the true impacts that these were having. And then being able to build up the next generation of scientists so they could do even more work.
Hmm. Yeah, it sounds like with your experience, it was a yes and, right? So your experience kind of showed you that you'd rather look at it from like a macro level versus the like day to day, like, okay, I'm going to do this, going to do this, going to do this, because you want to see the benefits. You want to be able to reap the benefits, but also like spread it, like spread the word, like spread the gospel. Like this is what it does. This is what it does for you. And I like that you were touching on the funding that was coming from like the programs from your school that like it was meant to serve like under what was it that you were saying? Um,
Like
it was
minority
the
students,
minority students.
underserved, or like low
Hmm.
income first generation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like that you were touching on that because I feel like a lot of those programs is what is going to keep this industry kind of moving forward. Um, just getting on my soapbox there. But yeah, great. Thank you. My next question was, what is one soft or hidden skill that you use daily that's not typically taught in the classroom? So this could be something as small as like, I think we touched on it a little bit, but like kind of speaking the language and being able to translate that from people within the field to people not in the field, things like that. Kaylin, did you want to start us with that one?
Sure. I think the biggest word that comes to mind and something that I have marketed myself in different interviews over the years is just adaptability. I think that is the key skill to at least the path I'm in. A lot of field work, heavy, data collection based work is just adaptability. You have to be ready to be adaptable to changing scenarios, changing situations, whether you get to a field site and you think things are going to go easy. Okay, today our goal is step 1, step 2, step 3. And oftentimes it's step 1, part A, B, and C, step 2, and then you skip to step 5 and then back to step 4, and things aren't always as planned. And I think it's something I've learned a lot in my field is being adaptable. There's a lot of things out of our control. An example from my day-to-day, we're in streams and rivers, and so sometimes you spend 20 minutes hiking down this huge mountain to get to the stream, and there's a big log jam, and you're like, okay, great, we didn't expect that. How do we work around that? Or, oh, the stream is a lot faster, a lot swifter. How are we maintaining safety? Do we need to adjust our field survey methods to account for this? Missing field equipment. Hey, I left my so-and-so back at the truck and it's a 30-minute hike back up the big mountain you just climbed down. And so, how can you get creative with what you might have in your field bag? And even natural things that are out of our control. We were once stalked by a mountain lion on a field site, and that was
Oh.
pretty crazy. And so you have to be adaptable of how do you work around things that are out of your control.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that's not often taught in the classroom, because classrooms are very much it's a learning environment. Hey, we're going to teach about this topic, and it's very much linear. But being in the field is not linear always. And I find myself needing to be adaptable on a daily and weekly basis. But I think maintaining that mindset of like, okay, pause. How do we safely or creatively move to a new solution to what the day has to hold. But I think, yeah, adaptability is just huge, as well as just excuse me, the as well as just being adaptable in the duties of the role as well. You know, some days you're in the field and sometimes something will happen, and so you have to be adaptable to be in the office, or hey, we need you to help on this project. So we don't have anything for you, so you're going to go help in this department today. Just being open to those new things that might pop up, I think, is a soft skill that I've found very helpful in this field of study.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel like getting crossing paths with the mountain lion, you said? Like
Yes.
that'll keep you on your toes. Like you'll have to be able to like just like respond really quickly, know that that's not the path we're gonna go today. We're probably gonna figure something else
Yep.
out.
You know, and looking back, we just stayed as a group and collected the data, and our boss was like, you know, you could have left. That would have been okay. But we have a
Yeah.
story now to tell. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so
Wow. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just like I would have left. I would have been done that day. That would have been the end of my career in that.
yeah, my coworker, for some reason, was able to warn us about it. He was upstream and got a photo of
Mhm.
it. So I'll have to send you the photo after this. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I'd love to
pretty
see
crazy
that.
day.
Yeah.
But lots of stories with it. So.
Oh man. Christian, what about you? Is there anything that maybe you learned on the job that's like a soft hidden skill, something you didn't learn in the classroom?
Yeah, I think one of my big lessons was that if you're really excited about what you do, kind of conveying that excitement to others, is really positive. People are willing to kind of help you, collaborate with you, kind of get you to that next stepping stone. If you're excited and you're willing to go that extra mile to do, for in my situation do a side project with somebody that helps with their project, but you'll be able to learn a lot of new things. Um, so anything to kind of just broaden the breadth of your knowledge. I think showing up to your job excited and, friendly and, social with your colleagues is really important to your development, especially as a scientist, I would say.
Hmm. Yeah, I know that when I get to speak with a lot of the biology students, the chemistry students, and I get them talking about their research, they just light up. Like that is going to be like their happy place if they can talk with somebody and like someone that's willing to like listen to them and give in to them and just kind of like hear them out. I feel like it's a really big shift from people who you can tell they're just not passionate about it. You kind of, the person that's receiving that information or is on the receiving end is going to shift their attitude as well. So I think that's great. Just like showing up with a positive attitude is really going to be helpful. Is there
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
specific situation that you said like that would have helped you like in your career?
Yeah, so for example, at my current position, leading up to this, I did a 1 year fellowship with this company. And, a part of that is to produce a nice data package around a project that the company is interested in to understand more deeply so that they can make better decisions when they're developing their therapeutics. And immediately, there was a person at this site that I really resonated with. He was very excited about the same type of biology that I'm really excited about. So I initiated a lot of conversations with him. Asked him a lot about his research because it was genuinely very exciting to me. And we ended up collaborating on a few projects, and he ended up being a really big advocate for me to stay at the company after my fellowship, which was really important, especially kind of in the current job market. So that was one example where, if you just kind of lead with your excitement and, wanting to kind of learn more and collaborate with others, that goes a really long way. And that's not the only instance that helped me get to the next step in my career.
Wow. That's really cool. I think that that'll really resonate with some students. Just like having a positive attitude, showing enthusiasm for your work, they can go a long way. That's really great.
Mhm.
Um, Patty, what about you?
I think kind of piggybacking off of what Christian was saying, one of the key skills that I really think is sometimes overlooked, is communication skills. Um, especially like within the work that I'm doing as a lab manager, I'm constantly talking with people all day, every day. And it's not just going to be the communication skills that you have when you're face to face with someone. It's going to be being able to write SOPs, reaching out to different vendors, being able to have hard conversations with students or student workers when they're not meeting expectations or they're not following lab safety guidelines, so that you can make sure that you're prioritizing their safety and their well-being. Like being able to navigate those things can be really difficult at times. So learning how to ride the line of being very caring, but also being able to maintain like high standards is something that you have to do with a lot of grace. It has to be done with a lot of patience, and ultimately a lot of love for the people that you're working with. There's going to be times when you're disagreeing with one of your workers or with a colleague or someone who's above you, and being able to understand, like, hey, at the end of the day, like, we might not be seeing eye to eye, but like, I could still know that you're my friend, you're my colleague, you're someone that was created in the image and likeness of God. Like, you're someone that I'm called to love. Like, that's going to be something that I think is super important for students to remember when they're going into the workforce. They're never going to be perfect. Their colleagues and the people around them are never going to be perfect. So being able to extend that grace to others and also be able to forgive yourself and ask for forgiveness whenever you're making mistakes, like those kinds of things are going to be key in making sure that you're not only able to maintain good relationships, but build them up.
Yeah, I think that's super important for students to hear, not just like within this field, but in any field, right? Is that mistakes are going to happen. No one's perfect. No one enters their job knowing exactly what they're supposed to do,
Mhm.
right? And so being able to even like communicate a mistake like effectively to a supervisor or to a colleague or to somebody, it's going to take a lot. And I feel like a lot of what we try to do at Concordia is kind of lead with love, is just kind of saying like, hey, look, mistakes happen. That's okay. We're not trying to cure anything today. Like a mistake is repairable as long as we're upfront about it and we can backtrack and try to figure it out. Um, but yeah, I like that you touched on communication skills and just being able to articulate yourself in a professional manner. I feel like that's super important. Yeah. Right. So I had one last question for you guys. It was, what is one piece of advice that you would give to students that are trying to break into the field? So I think we touched on it a little bit that the hiring field today is a little different than it was maybe a few years ago when we were all kind of entering into the fields. But if you were able to give students that are like graduating this coming year, what's maybe one piece of advice you could give them? Um, Christian, can we start with you?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm also kind of feeling the effects of the current market. This is like my first job out of the academic setting. And it was very abundantly clear that it's a difficult market to navigate. I think what goes a really long way is having research experience under your belt. So my big recommendation to CUI students is to try to reach out to, if you want to break into this field, to reach out to labs at CUI or at UCI. I think it's as simple as just sending an email to the professor that you're interested in. You can go onto, at least at UCI, I know that they have different websites for their chemistry department, for their biochemistry department, their neurobiology department. Anything that you might be interested in. If you send them an email just saying that you're looking for a research opportunity, um, you know, most of the time they would be happy to have you because you're an extra pair of hands that can help them with their research projects. And in return, you gain really valuable skills to make a decision on whether or not this is something you really like or not. And if it is something that you like, make you competitive for either jobs straight into industry out of graduating, or research assistant roles where, after graduating, you can work in a research lab full time as a job, or pursuing, master's or PhD programs. So, identifying whether or not you like research is really important, and getting that experience is really important to make that decision, so that you're a lot more clear on where you want to go after you graduate.
Great. I think that's really good advice. Thank you. Kaylin, what about you?
Yeah, I think my biggest piece of advice would be don't be afraid to make moves and take a wide variety of positions until you find the one that you're really set on. After college, I thought I wanted to go into climate science, climate change work, and here I am working in aquatic hydrology. So I think a lot of that I attribute to being flexible and trying new things. A lot of if someone's trying to go into a more field-based data collection side, it's a lot of seasonal positions, which is hard. It's a lot of 6-month contracts, and then trying to find a winter 6-month contract, which in Oregon is sometimes harder to find for field work, or just working odd jobs. Um, I moved to Oregon it was after COVID. I was applying for jobs all over the United States and thought, okay, great, whoever offers me a job first, that's where I'm going to go. And I actually found a position through it's a program called ACE. It's the American Conservation Experience. It's an AmeriCorps funded program, which allowed me to work with a federal program through the U.S. Forest Service, and also provided me at the end with a education stipend, which I've used to help pay my student loans. So that's another great opportunity for students as well. But I thought, great, it's 6 months. If I like Oregon, if I like the position, then I'll stay. If not, I'll move on to the next thing. And I've been in Oregon for 5.5 years now, so clear to say I liked it up here. But I think with that, even to get to the position I am now, and I graduated college in 2019, I worked seasonally with the Forest Service for 3 summers. And in between, I worked as a substitute teacher for the local school district, or I worked as a GIS technician for a local geospatial company. But with that too, I think a piece of advice is don't be afraid to move and utilize your connections. The job I have currently with the state of Oregon, I got through a coworker I had during my field work with the Forest Service. And so, it's all about who you know. And I think don't be afraid to just reach out to someone. They may not have a position for you, but they may know of someone else who's hiring. And the field is a lot smaller than you think. So working hard and doing good work in the field, I think, speaks volumes. And not to mention seasonal work, you get a lot of adventures. It's a lot of fun. I love working outside. I've met some great and wonderful people, mentors, worked on projects all over the Pacific Northwest. And so I think a lot of fields are very linear. We graduate, find a full-time job, keep moving up the ranks. And I've found from my experience that it's not very linear. It's a little all over the place, but that's okay. It helps kind of funnel you into that linear path. And it takes time. So be patient, make moves to different places, try new things. You might think you're going to go into climate science, and then you end up in stream surveys. And so, I think it's to be said that there's a lot of things out there, and just, don't be afraid to utilize connections and new opportunities.
I like that advice. I did have a question. So I know that you were moving from California to Oregon. Was there anything that you needed to do to prepare for that, or did everything kind of transfer easily from state to state?
Good question. I found that things transferred pretty easily. I think what was really helpful was that ACE program I was mentioning, the AmeriCorps internship program. I think the basis of that program a lot of times is to get people who may not have like the full skills. Like I don't know if coming in and I would have applied for the USA Jobs like government position that I was doing. I would have gotten that right away, but through AmeriCorps, it was kind of like, yeah, we see your skills. We're gonna like give this opportunity to try this position. I think the only other thing would just be the weather in Oregon is very different than it is in Southern California. And
Yeah.
but again, it's very fun. I've loved the scenery up here, and there's, just the environments I get to work in are very different. I think work-wise, a lot of and I've noticed even with other positions I've applied for, friends who I've made up here, that, if you're studying fish, a species of fish in California that doesn't exist in Oregon, but having those skills of, I know how to collect fish data and you do electrofishing, like a lot of those skills do transfer across state lines. And unless you're working in a very specific research lab focused on one species, at least I found the skills you build are transferable based on whatever, I guess, topic or field you might be interested in.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. That was helpful. And Patty, what about you? Any advice?
The advice that I would probably give, especially seniors who are going to be graduating this year, is to make sure that they're getting some sort of lab or research or field experience under their belt. Um, like these kinds of experiences really communicate to potential employers that you have the skills to be able to do the job well. You have even just a little bit of experience and being able to also communicate with them that you are able and willing to learn and to adapt to the new environment, is going to be really key. Coming out of undergrad, you're not going to know absolutely everything you need to know for whatever job you're going into. It's still going to be a learning curve. You're going to be a lifelong learner. That's what you're called to in this life. You're not expected to learn everything that you need during your undergraduate career and just be able to go on and not learn anything else once you like enter the workforce. Um, so I really encourage students, if you know that you want to be going into a field similar to Christians, make sure that you're getting some molecular or microbio experiences under your belt. Make sure that you're comfortable using the different instruments, the different tools, you have good practice with the techniques. If you're interested in something that's more field-based, make sure that you're reaching out to the professors. Here we have professors like Dr. Binyami, we have Dr. Zarubin, Dr. Karam, who are more than willing to not just talk about the skills that you need to be successful in those careers, but they could even be pointing you to places where you could get more internship experiences, or you could be getting more experiences working in the Marine Lab or the Heritage Garden. And if you wanted to do a bigger jump and you wanted to go to UCI just down the road, um, similar to what Christian is saying, make sure that you guys are able to back up what you're saying. If you're reaching out an email, saying that you're interested in their lab, don't do it just because you know that they're a cool professor or because they have maybe like a Nobel Peace Prize or something. Like, make sure that it's something that you're actually interested in. Like, try reading some of their more recent publications. You might not understand everything that they're saying, but like do a little bit of research behind it. And then come in with questions, come in with that genuine sense of curiosity. And even if they don't have funding and you're going to be doing some work for free or you're doing work for credit, or maybe there are paid opportunities, like the only way you're going to really be able to make yourself stick out against any of the other people that you're potentially competing with for a position in the lab is that genuine curiosity, is being able to show that you're willing to learn new skills and you're able to adapt and contribute to a team. You have to be a team player.
I think that was really great. Just like making sure that they're coachable, adaptable, maybe a little humble. Um, you're not expected to know everything going into these fields. I think of science as just like that like never-ending learning process. Like there's always going to be a new discovery, there's always going to be a new way to kind of move forward, and that's why we need scientists. That's why we need people to ask these big questions or to go out and do the research, and so that we can start kind of moving in different directions. But yeah, are there any last thoughts that anybody had?
I think to add on to some of that as well of like reaching out to professors is in I've noticed a lot up here too is even just volunteer opportunities like with organizations too outside of the academic field. Even up here I work in a lot of obviously like river stream type things, volunteering with watershed councils or local soil and water conservation districts. And it doesn't even have to be a long volunteer thing. You just go for a day and, hey, do you have any projects that I can help with for an afternoon? And that can kind of help you get the skills too. Kind of touching on what Patty says, just, yeah, it doesn't hurt to reach out, and you can't be expected to know everything. And I think that's the fun of it is, even these small opportunities of reaching out, you might learn something new in the process. So, yeah, just another little tidbit I thought to throw into that last bit because I liked what Patty had to say.
Great. Well, that's all that I prepared today. Thank you, Kaylin, Christian, Patty. I really appreciate you all speaking to your current careers and just kind of how that transition happened for you. I know that everybody's path looks a little bit different, but it's good to know that there are multiple paths. There's different resources available to students on campus. So, yeah, just thank you for your time. I really appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Catherine.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.